I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for getting out in this bad weather. We're still pleased that it's a good number, and we know people will be trailing on in, but we're going to at least kind of try and be committed and conscious of your time for today's CLE. We're here with Tyrone Moncriffe. The name alone, you would know. If you have not been most of the people around here, though, look like experienced attorneys, but there are a handful of new ones. I remember when I came and started doing criminal defense work and came to the criminal courthouse probably about 2001. And one of the first names that I ever heard was Tyrone Moncriffe. And the first thing that people said to me, when you're a new attorney, go watch him in trial. Watch him in trial. And when I did and I wasn't a baby attorney, I was just a baby criminal defense attorney. And sitting and watching him, I was just in awe. And I thought, God, this guy is so good. He's good. And it's not just from us. I mean, everybody. I mean, the awards this man, this wonderful man has, and the accomplishments are amazing. For those of us that do this, we can all hope to aspire to even just get half of the things that Tyrone has done. Not only is he board certified in criminal defense, y'all already know that's the hard test we've got to prepare for, and you already know you got to have a certain number of trials to even get there. He's also first chair. He's certified first chair for death penalty cases, which alone just sends shivers down my back just to think that he's been doing that. The amazing accomplishments could go on and on, but I'm going to just talk about a few that many of y'all may not know. Just last year, I had the honor of presenting him with an award from the Black Criminal Defense Attorneys as a trailblazer, because he absolutely has been that for us. He's got the Presidential Award from TCDLA. He's ranked as one of the national top 1% in the nation. That's impressive, 1%. And he has been known as a super lawyer in Houston and Texas for 12 years in a row. 12 years, that's impressive, for over a decade. From every magazine, he is a regular TCDLA lecturer. He is voted the top 100 trial lawyers in the nation, voted top 50 black lawyers in the nation. That says a lot. If you ever go online, and I Googled him today just to kind of refresh my memory, and what was really impressed is if anyone ever has any ratings from AVVO, that's when clients rate you. And Tyrone has a perfect 5-star rating, 10 out of 10. So that's from his own clients. And that says a lot right there. If you've ever been around him, and you know how gracious and kind and warm-hearted he is. And he's going to teach us a lot today. Tyrone is going to give us some advice and give us some experience on storytelling. That's what he's known about. That's what makes a difference when Tyrone is in trial. And we hope to be able to gather some of his experience. And I'd like to introduce you to Tyrone Moncriffe.
I hate speaking at home. I speak a lot of places, folks. I've spoken from Boston, Massachusetts to San Diego, California. And I hate coming home. You know why? When you come home, it's sort of like when you go see your brothers and sisters. All that stuff Juanita said. All my brothers and sisters out here know it's all bullshit. We're going to have some fun, folks. We're going to have about an hour and a half or so. We're going to have some fun. And we're going to get into some things. First of all, I want to tell you, who can hear me? Lane, can you hear me way in the back? If my voice drops and you can't hear me, could you turn that? Turn that off. Turn it off for me. Yeah, I don't need it on. You can turn it off. If my voice drops and you can't hear me, raise your hand, because this presentation is for you. And it's for everybody here. I don't care where you're sitting in the room. It's for you. I want everybody to be included, okay? First of all, I want to start off by, how many people have heard me speak before? Raise your hands. I can't tell my old stories. How many people haven't heard me speak? All right, I got to tell it then, folks. See, there's a lot of people haven't heard me, so I've got to tell some story that you guys go, I've heard that a million times. I got to tell it for that group, all right? I want to start off by telling you a story about a little boy on his first day of school. You know how kids are on the first day of school? His mom and dad told him, you do whatever that teacher tells you to do today. And just before he gets out the car, Clyde, his mother reminded him, you do whatever that teacher tells you to do. He said, yes, ma'am. Walked into that class, and these kids were sitting at a table, and they were making some clay objects. And one kid was making one object, another kid was making another object. He jumped up, he wanted to make a baseball because his father liked baseball. And he started making that baseball, and the teacher said, no, no, no. That's not what we're going to make this morning. And she'd make the cup. And he looked at that cup, and he didn't like it, but you know, Mom and Dad, do whatever your teacher tells you to do. So he started to make that cup. After they made the objects, she went to the board. She said, boys and girls, we're going to draw a picture today. And he was excited because he wanted to draw the picture of that born at his grandfather's house. And he started drawing that picture. The little boy over here started drawing something. The little girl starts drawing a doll, and teacher said, no, no, that's not what we're going to draw. And she went to the board, and she grew a red flower with a green stem. He looked at that, looked at what he had drawn, and he drew the red flower with a green stem. 6 months later, that young man's father was transferred to another school district. And the very first day, the teacher said, boys and girls, we're going to draw a picture today. All the kids started to draw except him. He just sat there. And the teacher walked up and said, aren't you going to draw something? He said, ma'am, aren't you going to tell me what to draw? She said, no, you draw anything you want. And he got so excited, happy. He sat down. And he drew a red flower with a green stem. Think about your creativity. Think about what has happened to your creativity. Some things you wanted to do, thought you could do, you said, no, I can't do that. That's not allowed in court. Think about your creativity. I want to challenge you to be creative. Look, folks, when I first started practicing law, how many young lawyers here have been practicing, say, 5 years or less? When I started practicing, folks, I was on a quest to see who was good and who was great. You know what I mean? Who was good and who was great. And what made lawyers great and what made lawyers good. And the good lawyers were, boy, they were good communicators. Boy, they could communicate with jurors. The great lawyers were different. But the great lawyers were not communicating. They were connecting to people. And they were connecting to people with simple stories. We have a mindset as trial lawyers. You know what I mean when I say mindset? We have a mindset. We look at the state's evidence, and we think it's their evidence. That's a mindset. All right, y'all? We walk in there and look at that file. Robert, you know what I mean? We walk in and look at the state's case and say, this is the state's evidence. It is not the state's evidence. It is your evidence. It is your evidence. And we're going to talk about mindset. You know, one thing I watch a lot of young lawyers do today, too. I watch trials, you young lawyers trying cases. You guys don't take control of the room. Robert, you know what I mean? Robert Jones, I mentioned Robert Jones. Robert, raise your hand so they know I'm talking to a real human being. I'm just not making up a name. When I started practicing law, I ran into several lawyers. One of them name was Walter Pink. Y'all, some of y'all too young to know Walter Pink. Those Pink boys, that's his sons. Walter Pink told me some things I've never forgotten. And I'm going to transfer them to you guys. Walter Pink told me that when you walk into a room as a trial lawyer, I should never have to ask what you're saying. Trial lawyers control the room. Criminal defense lawyers, we control the room. It is your territory. He told me the most important attribute of a trial lawyer was courage. Courage. Another lawyer I ran into was Robert Jones, sitting right here. And Robert Jones told me something that transformed me, folks. Robert said, take a course in acting. I said, man, take a course in acting? Man, what am I take a course in acting for? And as I left Robert, folks, I went down the hallway, and on the wall was a sign that said, acting for lawyers. True story. I called the lady and I took a course in acting, and let me tell you why it was so important. It taught me chemistry with an audience, that life is a give and take. The great actors are not the ones who act. The great actors are the ones who react. That's what it taught me. I'm going to go over some of those things. And I was fortunate to run into some great lawyers, folks. How many of you ever heard of David Cunningham? You better raise your hand. No, David Cunningham. My very first capital murder death case, I asked Judge Lubis Salinas, and said, who you want to sit next to? And I got David Cunningham, the best thing I'd ever done, because David Cunningham gave me a standard of work. You know, I thought you worked from 8 to 5 and you're through. No, David worked from 8 to 5, and then he goes from 6 to 10, and I thought he was crazy, and this man is crazy. What I learned working with him was that whatever you've done, you can always do more. You may not do it, but you can always do more. I'm going to do some crazy things for some of those who haven't heard me. Look, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I want to be a writer. I had no writing talent. But man, I'd read Herman Melville, and I'd read Hawthorne, and I'd read James Baldwin, and I'd read Hemingway, and I'd read Steinbeck, and they said Steinbeck could write about darkness. Darkness, and make you feel it. Write about darkness, and make you feel it. Hemingway, how many of you read a lot of Hemingway? Hemingway would use sentences, short sentences, very powerful sentences. Let me show you the sentences of Ernest Hemingway. Baby shoes for sale, never worn. Baby shoes for sale, never worn. Powerful. I saw that writers could make you feel. Artists. The reason we're so connected to artists, they make you feel. Trial lawyers, the best makes an audience feel. They make you feel. There's a gentleman named George Carton. I took a class in Wyoming from George Carton Trial Lawyers College, and George Carton said something I never forgot. George Carton said a storyteller can walk into a room and reduce it to one feeling. Walk into a room and reduce it to one feeling. Whatever that feeling is. We're going to have some fun. Look, folks, so some of you have heard me speak. You know about the lemon story then, right? I know some of you say, I don't want to hear that lemon story again. I know you don't. Now, so who has not heard the lemon story? All right, see what I mean? I got to say it for them, folks. I know you've heard it, but I got to say it for them. Look, I don't remember a lot of things about undergrad school, except those parties that we gave, but I do remember one thing. One of my teachers walked in, and she said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do something. I want you to go to your refrigerators, and I want you to look at that refrigerator. How many of you can see your refrigerators? Raise your hand right now. And I want you to go to that refrigerator, and I want you to walk up to it, Clyde, you too, and open that door. When you open the door, notice that cool breeze hits you right about in the middle, right about here. That light comes on. Inside of that refrigerator, there is a lemon. It is the biggest lemon you've ever seen. You take a hand out, pull that lemon out, notice the rough edges on it, you pull it, and you put it on the nearest table, and you start to roll it backwards, forward, backwards, forward, backwards, forward. Take the knife. You know where it is, in that drawer, the sharpest one you can get. Take that knife out, put it in the middle of that lemon and start to slice it backwards, forward, backwards, forward. Juices are now starting to come out and you turn your head because of the smell. Backwards, forward. It splits in two. One side has seeds. Take your hand and put that side in your hand. Put that lemon and squeeze it just a little bit. Not a lot, folks. Juices are starting to come out.